In this video, we'll begin to learn the verb hacer. By the end of the video, you should plan to be able to write down a list of present tense conjugations from memory, as well as begin to be comfortable with the interesting idiomatic ways that this verb can be used. What's the difference between doing something and making something? In most languages, they're the exact same thing. There's no difference. Most English speakers find this very bizarre. We seem to think that making and doing are two entirely different categories. In general, we make physical objects such as meals, like they made breakfast. We do actions such as exercise. I did my exercise. But if you think about it, there's a lot of crossover. For example, I made a mistake. So a mistake is an action, and you would think that it would be do, but no, we always say I made a mistake, not I did a mistake. As another example, if you come home to find out that everything has been spilled off of your kitchen shelves, you would probably be angry that there's a mess. There are two questions you might ask. Who made this mess? Or who did this? So for Spanish speakers, to make and to do are the exact same thing. Making a mess is the same thing as doing a mess. Making dinner is the same thing as doing dinner. One of our unfriendly neighborhood characters, Sarah, will come back to teach us this lesson. Now, Sarah spends most of her time at her apple shop, Hacer, where she only concerns herself with being, like are you a tall person? She cares what people are, as who they are. But when she feels more interested in doing or making something, she goes down the street to her restaurant, Hacer. Now, the infinitive, hacer, means to do or to make. The stressed syllable sounds like ser, although of course it has a completely different meaning. Hacer is a make-your-own-meal restaurant that Hacer manages. It may be strange that you would go to a restaurant and then make your own meal, but that's how Hacer likes to run things. Actually, the main reason is for selfish purposes. She wants other people to make food for her. So unlike at the apple shop, at Hacer, she isn't very picky about who comes in, as long as the guests are willing to make meals and give some of the food back to Hacer herself. So if you think to ser, you can think of the Spanish hacer. As some examples of the infinitive, aren't we going to do that part? No vamos a hacer esa parte.
¿No vamos a hacer esa parte?
Next example. Actually, he wouldn't know what to do. So you'll hear, actually, he wouldn't know qué hacer.
En verdad no sabría qué hacer.
Next. Without doing anything? Sin hacer nada?
Sin hacer nada.
Now, Joel and his friends come to Hacer's restaurant because they want to make dinner for themselves. As soon as they come in, Hacer tells them that they have to go ahead and prepare a hog right away. They're expected to prepare pigs for dinner, but Sarah always calls these pigs hogs. So she hands out a hog to each of her customers, one for Joel, one for the lizard, and one for the pandas to share. Each of them is expected to rub seasonings on the hog and then shove it into a machine for preparing hogs, and it's going to do the cooking for them. Now, since Joel is selfish and hungry, he insists on being the first to prepare the hog. He says, I'll go do my hog first. Now, the word he uses is hago, which sounds kind of like I'll go, but it starts with a silent H at the beginning, H-A-G-O, hago. The word hago that Joel uses here means I do or I make. But then something strange happens. Joel hears a grunting noise coming from the direction of the lizard's platter. It seems that the lizard's hog is trying to say something. What did the lizard's hog say? Asks Joel. Then the same sound begins to come from the panda's hog. What are the hogs saying? Asks Joel. This is very unsettling. The hogs seem to be talking. In Joel's confused rush, he pronounces the word hog wrong, leaving out the H and the G, so instead of saying hogse, it sounds like ase. So you'll hear ase and hacen. The words hace and hacen are used for the lizard and the pandas. Think hog say. H-A-C-E, hace, means it does or it makes. Of course, it could be he does, he makes, or she does or she makes. Hacen means they do or they make. Of course, following the same pattern, the word haces, H-A-C-E-S, is used for you do or you make. So this is what Joel says to Sarah. You gave us live hogs to cook? What are you doing? To say what are you doing, Joel says, ¿Qué haces? But it's too late. The hogs are already locked behind oven-like doors. Staring at the hogs through the glass, Joel and the pandas all simultaneously say, oh no. And at the exact same time, they see the hogs inside the machines saying the same thing. Oh no. Then Joel shouts, did you see that? The hogs all said the same thing that we did. What are we doing? What we're doing isn't good. When Joel says we are doing, he uses the word hacemos, which has the stressed syllable same, based on the fact that they all said the same thing at once. So as a quick review of these words, we have hace for he does or she does, hacen for they do, haces for you do, and hacemos for we do. And then we have Joel's strange one, hago, for I do. Now the hogs disappear into the workings of Hacer's giant hog-preparing machines. As they meet a strange fate, let's look at a few examples of these words. So for the first one, they do very strange things. Hacen cosas muy strange.
Hacen cosas muy extrañas.
Next, I'm doing very strange things. Hago cosas muy strange.
Hago cosas muy extrañas.
This next one is different, so it's a question. And what are you doing here? The way that this is structured is, and you, what are you doing here? ¿Y tú qué haces aquí?
¿Y tú qué haces aquí?
In the next example, hacer is used to mean to make, but the word make is being used as the passing of time. This is actually a very common phrase structure in Spanish. So literally, it makes like 1,000 hours that you've been reading. Hace como 1,000 horas que estás reading.
Hace como 1,000 horas que estás leyendo.
Here are a couple of more examples to solidify this. It makes like 3 years that we are here. Hace como 3 años que estamos aquí.
Hace como 3 años que estamos aquí.
It makes like 4 days that I don't have it. Hace como 4 días que no lo tengo.
Hace como 4 días que no lo tengo.
The next example is a reflexive use of hacer, which is a bit strange. Literally, this would mean that something does itself, but what it really means is that something is done. For example, how is this done can be said as ¿Cómo se hace esto? That's literally how does this do itself, but that's not how it's translated. This next example is nothing is done. No se hace nada.
No se hace nada.
Now let's go to the imperfect tense of hacer. Joel is a bit disturbed by the notion that he and his friends have sent hogs into a meal-preparing machine while they were still alive. By examining the chutes that the hogs were sent through, he can tell that they must have been directed to a large machine behind the counter. When Ser isn't looking, Joel sneaks behind the counter to get a closer look at this machine. It has very tiny windows, like peepholes, and Joel hopes he can spy into the machine to see what's going on with the hogs. He says to himself, I want to see what I can see. The stressed syllable see goes with the word hacía, which is the imperfect past tense for hacer. Hacía applies to both Joel and the lizard, so it can mean I was doing or I was making, he was doing, she was making, and so on. Now, using the stressed syllable see, The other words can be derived from this one. Hacían, for the pandas, they were doing. Hacías, for you were doing. And hacíamos, for we were doing. Now, if you think about it, hacer is an action verb. It's kind of like ir. We don't usually use the general imperfect past tense behind the counter so much as the action or event past tense version of it. You usually do it one time, not for a long period of time. The imperfect past tense isn't nearly as common as the preterite past tense, which we're going to learn soon. However, this version behind the counter, hacía, is occasionally used when something has happened multiple times in the past. To demonstrate, let's see what happens when Ser catches Joel spying through the peepholes. "What are you doing back here?" she demands to know. "You aren't authorized to come behind the counter. This area is for experienced chefs only." Joel makes an excuse. But I am an experienced chef. I used to make dinner all the time when I was a young bee growing up because my mother was too lazy to do it herself." When Joel says, "I used to make dinner all the time," he says, hacía dinner all the time. So this is used for a recurring event in the past, something that someone used to do, rather than a single event that someone did one time. Of course, more often, hacer is regarded as a one-time action, so the preterite tense is more common than the hacía tense. We'll learn the preterite forms as Joel and his friends find the prepared hogs coming out the other end of the machine.